As a real estate investor, your job is always to develop your land to the highest and best use of that land.
Yep.
And back in the day, that was, you know, single family homes, and then that became too expensive. And then we started talking about secondary suites, accessory suites. That's becoming more expensive now. Now we're looking at secondary suites plus a primary residence plus a garden home on top of that. And that's just the beginning of where I think it's going to go. But as an investor, I'm trying to buy everything I try to buy nowadays has the room for a garden home. The average investor tries to make money. The great investors actually protect their downside. And I actually believe that if you do some of the strategies we're talking about here, this isn't just about going to get that growth. This is actually about protecting that downside.
Alright guys, Mitch Cleary here, joined by an awesome guest, Jean-Guy Francoeur today, who is the Chief Growth Officer for REIN Canada. He's also Manager, CEO of Visture Property Group, which is a property management company in Peterborough surrounding area. Fortunate to have him here, and today specifically, I think we're going to cover, this is unique in that it's a duplex that you built, and it's got the potential upside of a garden home in the back, right?
That's right.
So let's start with that, and then maybe once we analyze this place a little bit, we can segue into what you're seeing from the property management front in terms of Peterborough rental rates, demographic shifts, anything you want to cover.
For sure. So, you know, Visture Property Group is essentially a property development company. We also have a property management arm to the business, but we built this, you know, a little less than 10 years ago as a proof of concept to develop infill lots as duplexes. And we did that on the heels of accessory suites and that the bylaws coming down from the province down to the municipalities. We did this extensively in Peterborough, in Aurelia, in Huntsville, and in Lindsay. And because before this concept, you know, it was hard to get duplexes. The same way it's hard to get duplexes now. So then once the accessory suite bylaw kicked in, it opened up this window of opportunity where for 4 or 5 years the getting was good. Now that kind of opportunity is starting to close. It's getting more difficult, right?
Say that because I'd like to jump in there because a lot of people still call me and say I'm looking at secondary suite, I'm looking at secondary suite. And the fact of the matter is, when prices go up 100 grand between January and March of 2021, a lot of opportunity goes away. A lot of it dries up. It's arguable that a lot of those opportunities are gone, and it's on to what the next trend is, which is what we're here to talk, which is the garden homes potentially, right? Some new opportunity.
Well, I mean, I think as a real estate investor, your job is always to develop your land to the highest and best use of that land. And back in the day, that was, you know, single family homes, and then that became too expensive. And then we started talking about secondary suites, accessory suites. That's becoming more expensive now. Now we're looking at secondary suites plus a primary residence plus a garden home on top of that. And that's just the beginning of where I think it's going to go. And if I was I am a real estate investor, but as an investor, I'm trying to buy everything I try to buy nowadays has the room for a garden home, because really,
so what's your criteria on that? Do you need enough? Can you in specifics? Do you need a sideways laneway? Like what fronted, like lot width and lot depth specifics? So
yeah, right now the big thing with all municipalities is parking. So you have to consider where you're going to put enough parking. If you currently have a single family home and you're going to put a secondary suite, well, you're going to need at least 3 parking, maybe 4 parking if you want it zoned as a duplex. That's first requirement. You want to throw a garden home on top of that, you're going to need 5, probably 6 parking. Okay? So do you have room for that? If you don't have room for that, what's your plan for that? Are you going to do a minor variance? How are you going to get around those?
Not recommended. Not recommended. I'm being honest,
How are you going to get around those things? But, you know, and I agree, minor variances are actually, compared to zoning changes, they're easy to get. But the fact is, if you can avoid that altogether, even better. Even better. But parking requirements, so, sorry, back to what you're saying. Parking requirements is the first big consideration, and the second big consideration is the size of the lot, to make sure you can actually fit a garden home back there comfortably.
Access the backyard with a vehicle, right?
Well, and you know, as an investor, we have to think about, not only is the yard big enough to meet the bylaws to be able to fit a garden home, which is where most people think about it. For me, it's more than that, is can I fit a really beautiful home back there?
Something nice, sustainable.
Something nice, right? something nice that's going to fit in with a beautiful property like this that I can get premium rent for it. Because if I'm just trying to jam something in there to increase my occupancy or to increase my density, that may not necessarily be good long term.
Yeah, I like that too. I don't know, Matt Reisinger's a huge YouTube construction guy.
Yeah.
Anybody ever watches, and he has this sort of slogan that it's people always talk about sustainable building. He's like, sustainable building includes amazing design and architecture and beautiful buildings. He's like, because bad buildings get torn down. You know what I mean? Like that's, you get wartime housing that's put up in haste. It doesn't stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And so sustainability is more than just the materials you use. It's making stuff that people love too, right? So I 100% agree.
Now, but I think these garden homes, Mitch, for me the opportunity is more. It's more than just getting a third unit on this plot of land. It's how you're going to develop that third unit. It's the fact that you're actually going to bring that garden home in on a flatbed. You're not going to build traditionally.
Yeah, modular's prime for absolutely.
You know, manufactured housing is finally getting to a place where it's actually going to be. You're going to be able to do the whole thing back there for, call it $100 grand or call it whatever.
200 grand in this environment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 300 tomorrow.
But the point is that, and I actually suspect that's going to start coming down. By the way.
And it does. Yeah. And in fairness, I guess we're so used to thinking that way, and it does seem like it's trending that way, right? Record lumber profits can only go on so long until the market responds.
Well, lumber. I just built a structure the other day on another renovation we're doing at Visture Property Management, and you know, lumber's back down to where it used to be, $4 a stud, so on and so forth. So, but the point is that I think modular homes, manufactured homes, 3D printing. Yeah. You are in no time, and I know that you think.
How far are we going with the printing? Yeah.
Dude, I know you think, and I know that everybody thinks this is like 20 years out. You are going to see it guaranteed this decade, probably in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. For what types of materials? Like that relevantly affects the outlay of some of these projects?
Well, so 3D printing is perfect for a garden home. You could right now efficiently 3D print a 350 square foot home.
I'm baffled to even hear it. It's so funny because that's the first time that I've heard that. So, but I take it as we're like that's for anybody watching. John Guy's very well connected, depth of information and knowledge. So I'll do my own research, but that's amazing for to hear you say that.
Well, right now it's 350 square feet is a good size to 3D print. Okay, and I'm talking about the printer comes in, and this is happening right now, dude. The printer comes in on a flatbed. You're gonna drive that 3D printer back there, and it'll print a 350 square foot home back there.
Resin, sometimes.
Yeah, so there's two ways of doing it. There's two ways of doing it. Number one is a lot of them are developing their own secret formulas, and that's actually their IP. The printer's not the IP. The stuff inside is
the printing technology.
That's the IP. There's a lot of them that are just doing concrete, right? But right now that's the magic formula. 350 square feet. Now, a garden home has to be below a certain amount of square feet, right? Typically, it's roughly about 750. So you can't build a 2,000 square foot garden home.
No,
a garden home is going to be somewhere between 500, 600, 700 square feet.
Yeah.
Man, that is dangerously close to 3D printing now.
And now, I mean, I have enough problems with the printer in my office. How many problems are we going to have with 3D home printers? The printer's not working again. Sorry, man. The printer's having a bad day. You got it. It's like, yeah.
You're just going to
call ceilings are like 4 feet high.
You'll just call Visture. We'll take care of it for you, bud.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
But to me, that's the future of real estate investing. If you're stuck in an old story of buying a single family home, doing just a burr on it, trying to add a secondary suite, you've
couldn't agree more. The amount of people I call that it's a dead end phone call, or that I onboard, that come through, I want to invest, I want to do a burr, I'm looking for a duplex or single family. I say, you know what, like a year and a half ago, I would have landed you a place in 3 months, and you would have been right now, you'd be on the upside 150K, you know? And it's just not the case anymore. So I love it. That's the creative thinking. An opportunity can only last for so long because international money. When interest rates have been flat for how many years, and there's no money to be made in debt products. Everything's a bubble. Stock market's a bubble. Everything's overstuffed. Every equity product is overstuffed with capital, and so opportunities open and close in the blink of an eye, right? When there's so much money looking to come here. So.
Well, not to mention, to me as an investor, you're good. The average investor tries to make money. The great investors actually protect their downside. And I actually believe that if you do some of the strategies we're talking about here, this isn't just about going to get that growth. This is actually about protecting that downside. You know, if you got 3 units generating income on a piece of property, that's a lot better than 2, and it's a heck of a lot better than 1. So would I invest in a duplex and add a garden home and then rent out my gardens and create some storage and try to create 5 or 6 different revenue sources from one piece of land instead of buying a condo where I'm beholden to all these things? I think it's a no-brainer in my world.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You know what's funny? You talking about 3 units, sidebar. Did you hear that California just passed a bill that statewide they're going to be basically allowing all single-family residential to allow up to 4 units on the property? So basically, like country, like statewide, the population of California, and so all single families being able to, and that's the depth of the housing crisis. That don't be surprised if that type of legislation comes through. We're not to that effect, but obviously we're in dire times, and so absolutely, like big properties, even in that situation, if you have a small plot of land, that's going to restrict you, and obviously that was a pretty big overcast, very broad, generalized decision that was made by the state government to combat a homelessness problem and an affordability problem. But obviously you're still going to be better positioned to have a bigger plot of land than a smaller one if you're going to try and take a single family into a fourplex, right? So as our province, the city moves along, obviously more land is benefit. If you can buy the exact same property that's on a 30 by 90 lot, or you can get a similar one for X amount more, you know, $10,000-$20,000 more, and it's going to be a 45-foot wide lot, and some of the city of Peterborough 200 foot deep, the old beauties down in the old West End and the avenues, that's obviously, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you speak of homelessness. I mean, that's actually right now 3D printing is having an impact on homelessness right now. Do you know they can actually 3D print this 350 square foot home in less than 24 hours for $4,000 right now today? This is right now today, 2021. I'm not talking about what they're going to do in 10 years. I'm telling you, they're doing it right now.
Man, you got 3D printing housing stocks? No, but that's incredible. That really is technology that can help a lot of people out. So that's awesome stuff, man. Like, we could just keep going. Let's show us around. Show us around the place.
Perfect. Yeah. So when you're looking at when you're looking for a lot, you know, we talked about this, right? So giving yourself enough side yard setback is very important, right? So let's just say the setback bylaws is 3 meters or whatever the case may be. Can you get a vehicle through there? Can you? Maybe you can. Maybe you have to actually shrink your footprint if you're building from scratch, or maybe you need to get a variance, or maybe you get an easement. But you have to think about this stuff as an investor right now. It's going to be too late when you buy a property and you didn't leave enough room to get back there, for example. And we're talking about getting back there. I'm right now speaking about a vehicle getting back there, but even just people. Like, if I had a garden home back there, I have to change how this property flows to be able to get people in and out from back there.
Walkways, grocery, accessibility, barrier-free.
Well, and also landscaping. You know, trees. I'll show you back here as we go. You know, I kept a section of trees on this property exactly with this garden home in mind, because actually where that shed is right now, I'm going to tuck in a garden home right there.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know.
So are you renting that shed out right now?
No. But I could. But I could. And investors should, right? Now, I'm not. I could, but a lot of investors should. But this is a perfect example back here. So this is a perfect example. So, you know, thinking with garden homes in mind, you are actually going to set up your property differently. So I left that cluster of trees because I actually want to nestle the garden home kind of in there to make it feel secluded, to make it feel, you know, you don't want to put a garden home in just a backyard jungle.
The next, right?
Because don't forget, you're going to attract the type of renter that's going to be equivalent to your type of property.
Fully, and you're speaking from experience of so many units that you're renting out and managing buildings, and I mean, thousands
of tenants. You know, in the last decade, you know, we've seen what works and what doesn't work, and you get to, you know, you make enough mistakes, you find out what works. But this is an example of really thinking with these garden homes in mind, and that really goes, even if you have a single family home today, you might end up adding a garden home. And I actually think the future of this, Mitch, is like, you know, you may not not be an investor like me. You may not have dozens and dozens or hundreds of properties, but the average homeowner today has to think about this stuff.
Totally, yeah.
Otherwise, they're not making money on their property.
No, for sure, and they'll be upset when they see their friend that just so happened to unknowingly have the property that was primed for this is a couple $100 grand, you know, more in the good than them, just by chance. And it's like, if you, that's it, educate people up front, you can make decisions accordingly on your first, second purchase, right?
And what's shifted for garden homes now is about 8 months ago, lenders are finally recognizing the income from the garden home. They're finally recognizing it. See, about a year ago, they weren't recognizing it. You could have had the most incredible garden home here that was awesome, generating revenue, but when you go to refi, they actually wouldn't.
What changed there? Was that a legislative thing from the federal government, or was that, just in the banking world, they said, hey, this is the trend?
Enough people knocking on the door and saying, listen, this is working, we're doing this.
A solution,
So right now, I know this is happening a lot in Barrie, it's happening a lot in Orillia. Peterborough is always a little bit behind, so you know, it's not happening as much here. But just because the municipalities don't recognize it yet, doesn't mean the lenders aren't recognizing it. Those are two different things.
And the province, as someone who's studying what solutions are actually working in other cities, that there's a chance that it could get basically mandated, that the municipality is going to get told this is now allowed. Right?
That's a foregone conclusion. That is guaranteed going to happen. The same way they did it with accessory suites, the province has to push them towards this. You cannot leave it in the hands of the municipalities, I'll tell you that. But what's interesting here is that now that they're recognizing this extra income, think about the value add. Think about if you bought a single family home and you paid whatever, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, and you add a garden home that cost you $100,000, $150,000, but now it's generating revenue, which means your entire building now is much more valuable. Right?
And much more feasible. We could bring the cost of living down for everybody. It's just flat out, we need units, right? We need people to have more affordability. We need supply. That's supply right there. It's entry level market, right? It might not be, people could see it as a great stepping stone to rent or own. I don't know if you, now how about any idea, any thoughts or understanding on how the title systems work there? That's all one title. You cannot sell that garden home separately. Correct. It's one plot of land, so they all get transferred as one. It'll only be a rentable unit. It'll never be anything else.
That is correct. In this particular case, that's correct. Now, but what it does, you talk about entry level, right? This is important because the market, you have to move the market, and creating entry-level rent actually moves the rest of the market as well, right? And what I mean is that you might have some secondary people, some secondary or some more premium tenants that want to move on, but they don't have any supply to move to. They can't see
anything. Absolutely, no, it's so true. Everything's interconnected. It's all it all moves. Exactly. You supply the top end, and you get them away from competing with people on marginal stuff. You supply the bottom end, and you reduce the competition in this. Even in the investor pool, those secondary suite properties, man, they really, like your little standard brick bungalow deal just got torn apart this year because your first time buyers who now wanted to be able to secondary suite that basement so that they could have someone rent in there and offset their cost of living. That was the exact same thing that the investors were chasing, and it moved the bottom of this market so rapidly, and there was nothing to replace that for the bottom buyer. Like that's,
because there's no entry level, right?
Exactly,
So when you supply that entry level, you allow the entire market to move up.
It helps everything.
It helps everything. Otherwise, you get this gridlock that we're in right now, and that's always caused by lack of supply.
I couldn't agree more. Well, that's all awesome stuff, man. So is there anything else that is noteworthy on this one, or like, I think you hit it right on the head with so many things there. Generally speaking, Peterborough trends, demographics, rent.
I'll tell you right now that Peterborough, what's happening in Peterborough, and you know this better than anybody else, is that we're being swarmed by people that are moving from the city. They're willing to pay a lot more than Peterborough people are willing to pay. And as a result, that's pushing all the values up. Now, is that artificial? To a certain extent, but to a certain extent it's not, because real estate is worth what people are willing to pay, and these people are willing to pay a lot more.
I mean, all financing aside, and the super low interest rates and talks of bubbles there, the fundamental arithmetic of people and homes is still out of whack. Like whether the interest rates are going up or down, and to be honest, many would speculate that our current government and all of North America and mostly all the world is going to have a real hard time making any meaningful increases to interest rates without. So So they're basically just gonna have to continue to inflate their way out of this thing and make up the difference on subsidized payments to the bottom. And you know what I mean? You have wealth disparity happening with that. Anybody who owns assets, they're growing like crazy, and
they're gonna have a really hard time inflating their way out of it, because there's so many deflationary technology pressures coming at us that they actually they won't be able to do it. But we'll let them learn that the hard way.
Yeah, okay, crazy. So I always appreciate your insights. Like, what do you see macro level 5-10 year picture? Big things to watch for. What do you see? You're confident? Risk I think set at an all-time high, but that's my own personal opinion.
I'll tell you, it depends how you measure risk. First of all, and risk is a big component of risk is timeline. Right. So if you planned it, real estate's not the stock market. You can't buy it. You're not trading real estate here, and if you are, then that is a risky game. But if you're investing for the long term, if you're investing in cities with good economic fundamentals, I don't think it's about timing the market. I think it's about time in the market.
So true. And I guess just to back it up, because the most point in case scenario is that if you buy a place now and everybody who's all the millennials in property market crash, there's all the memes where it's like someone's trying to push over the stick, like come on, they're waiting to buy, and if it does, then it's, as long as our government still intends on immigrating at record levels, and our restrictionary forces on the supply side are still there at the municipal levels all across the province and country. And so what happens is that even if the liquidity and access to capital and the people looking to buy property gets totally obliterated and diminished, you're still going to have the lack of homes per capita, per people. So the rents will go through the roof, because when people can't afford to, when they don't have the liquidity to finance a purchase, then they have no choice but to rent. So the rents will go through the roof, and they're already going through the roof. So all of a sudden you have a property that, oh hey, when I bought it, cash flowed $200 a month or whatever, and I thought I was going to have all this upside in the equity, but turns out the value's dropped by $150K. Oh, but the rent's up $1,000 a month. You know what I mean? So I think that one way or the other, that supply and demand discrepancy is still going to be in your favor if you have a long-term hold perspective, right?
There comes right there. So you just said your entire rant there, which was fantastic. You're not going to get, if you have a good property with good income, with properly diversified the way we've been talking about today, it's not going to drop 150 grand. If you own that piece of crap that nobody wanted and you bought it in the middle of the hype and you didn't do your due diligence and you're not following a system, that property is going to go down 150 grand, but that doesn't mean the entire market's going to go down 150 grand. So major, real estate is going to pull back. There's no doubt. Real estate's already flattened, and it's definitely going to be pulling back, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't work for us real estate investors, especially if you've done it right.
For sure, yeah. No, that's appreciate it. Well, Jean-Guy, we got to roll for dinner. Pleasure to have you on.
Cheers.
And
buddy, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Okay, hopefully that was helpful for everybody and you got some good nuggets out of that. Jean-Guy Visture Property Group in town, locally in Peterborough. They are a property management company. They're actively taking on clients, so for any active investors, that's a good, we'll try and connect his contact info down below. I can get that to you guys. And thanks for another great shoot to Peter and the Matt McKeever team, and looking forward to seeing you guys next time.